All right, well, let's just jump right in then. So this is our first executive buddy team. Executive buddy teams would be different. All right, let's see how we're doing. Oh, we got to get organized first. So we know what we want to do. We did not review the super team priorities, but we did agree on what we want to focus on, right? Do we have agreement? There's no objections?
No objection.
Okay, so getting organized, we did not really get organized, but I would say I'm still at a 69. Where are you on your organization?
Still at 60.
You're at 60? Well, over here it says 75. So this should be 60.
Yeah.
So remember, this is for the organization, your organizational level. I would probably put you lower than 60. I would say more like maybe 58, 59. I mean, I haven't looked in detail, but when I look at your priorities here, invoicing and billing, I mean, this is kind of past, right? Global core budget, that's also kind of past, but still important. We haven't finalized it. Moon time clock updating, not super priority. Calendar, so I mean, it's just not totally clear exactly what you're working on, especially in terms of priorities to move the organization forward. Okay?
Okay.
But you are stepping up tremendously, and I'm really excited about getting involved in the executive team. All right, so I think we're ready to get to work. But really quickly on the positions, so this would be another important thing to add to the executive team priorities, which would be training on executive assistants, right? So during executive buddy teams, our roles are your role would be assistant support work position, and I would be doing self-driven work. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So during executive buddy teams, it's very important that you are organized and that you have your priorities clear on what you're working on. But typically, we would be focusing on my priorities, and you would be assisting me on mine, which is very different than what you would usually do. Oh, nice. Good. You reminded them to wrap up. So yeah, just in general, we want to be thinking in the concept that when we're doing when we're doing executive buddy teams, that we check to make sure you're organized, but we're focusing mainly on the executive priorities, not necessarily your priorities. Okay, and so in that concept, we're spending most of the time going over the lists and the priorities that need to get done, and then knowing who's assigned to do them and when they're supposed to get done by, and checking in with them. And then also we're just doing work and supporting me and helping out with the tasks that need to get done. So executive buddy teams are very different than normal buddy team work. So hopefully that makes sense, but we'll go more through it more in the future. The good news for you and Joyce and Abdul and other people who get involved in this is that all executive buddy team time would be considered bonus hours.
Okay.
Okay, because we're asking people to put in unbelievable amounts of hours. I mean, it would be great if you could put an extra 50 hours a week. I mean, if we could have done this 2 months ago, we might have been able to make hundreds of thousands of dollars out of it. You know what I mean? So it's like we're talking serious, important level of work, and it's just really a shame that we weren't able to get this done sooner, but better late than never, right?
Yeah.
All right, so what is next? So we want to make sure we have a doc, that's for sure, for an executive doc. I believe you created one.
Yeah. Let me link.
And especially during Cobalt sessions and drama sessions and other main sessions, I mean, actual executive buddy teams are pretty difficult to come by, and so they primarily happen in between sessions and during leadership buddy team time. Or the only way to do it during COBOL is to get the leadership buddy team separately, train other people to step up in the leadership roles, so that we can step off and do executive roles. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah, because there's so much to deal with COBOL. The only way to be able to step aside and do the executive roles is to get everything else in order and organized.
Link there.
Great. So I don't know what this is. Policies for Executive Jello Team Doc. What's that?
Oh, I did not give you the right doc.
Oh no, it says Executive Jello Team Doc, but I'm seeing here list of spreadsheets policies for Executive Jello Team Doc.
Yeah, I just put that one. Maybe we might have.
I mean, this is just ridiculous. Like I'm just not sure where you guys get these docs. Like it's just way too much information. Like it doesn't make sense why there's so many links. I mean, it's like there's 3 pages of links on a brand new doc that's never existed before, So it doesn't really make sense, but anyways, what are you going to do? So Jello Team Doc. Ooh, I think that might be the goal. I'll be right back. Go check the door.
Can I remove some information there? Hello, Jay.
I'm back.
Okay.
We just got the medals in the mail so we can do the payroll.
Okay.
This is good. All right. So I mean, generally speaking, there just doesn't need to be a lot of links on here. But at
So
least
we need to
hopefully,
remove some other links.
yeah. But I mean, there should be a template super team doc, right? So this could be another next step that we need to do, like so create a template super team doc. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So somehow, some way, people are using a template or using some other super team that just has so many links. It's like when you create a new main doc for somebody, you don't use an existing main doc that has like a million links on it. It would just overwhelming. Okay. Cool.
Okay.
All right, executive team priorities, executive team. So we have the main doc. We're gonna need a prioritization spreadsheet, which would be good. I think that's pretty much it. And we're probably going to need a master priorities list, right? So those would be like the main ones to get set up. So we'll keep going through it and keep setting up everything step by step. All right. Next is Joyce and Abdul. So do you have any question about the executive team setup?
No. What about decision doc?
The what doc?
Can you able to create also decision doc for executive team?
The decisions doc. I mean, I guess you technically could, but it's not really necessary because all decisions that executives make would be temporary and they would all need to go to a main session regardless. So,
Okay.
you know, they're just temporary. So really, they would just be agenda items. So anytime there's an executive decision, it would need to go. And all the executive, like real executive decisions, are made by the whoever the senior manager is, right? So the senior manager is the highest executive decision. The only way to make a higher executive decision from the senior manager is to have two senior managers who are higher level than the current scheduled senior manager, right? So then you need to get a group decision anyways. But either way, it's still executive decision. It still needs to go to a main session. So main session decisions are all that matters. That's where the important things get decided. And then from there, it goes to the core team. From there, it goes to the management team. And when are the management team sessions?
Manager teams, I think those are people who are managing the system.
I know, but when are the when are the management team sessions?
During the
Mercury. Yes, exactly. And what comes after the Mercury session in the management team? What's the next highest level?
Yeah.
What's the next highest level?
Venus.
Venus, yes. So the Venus session is the executive team, okay? So the executive executive Jello team is related and directly is linked with the Venus session, okay? Does that make sense?
Yes.
And then there'd be what we call the executive plasmo. Okay. So the executive plasmo responsibilities would be related to making sure that the executives were updated and knew what was going on across the organization. So and the network. So you have you personally have plasma responsibilities as well. All of your plasma responsibilities are technically separate from your Jello responsibilities. Does that make sense?
Yes.
It does? Okay, cool.
So, what are the really responsibilities for plasma?
Well, we're not going through plasma responsibilities right now. We're going through executive team roles and responsibilities.
Okay.
So we could put that as a next step, right? So review plasma responsibilities. Okay.
Okay.
Cool. And that would be something good to go over with other people and do more training with other people, because we want people related to plasma who can do that separate from everything else and make it as independent as possible. Okay, so one thing we want to make sure that we have is a policy doc. I don't know if we have a policy doc yet, but that's something we're going to want to be doing with everything. All right, so are there any questions about the Venus session and its relationship to the executive team? So we have there's a dual structure here. Dual structure for the Jello executive team. So one is the Venus session, right? An executive team, and the other is Jello team and executive team. Okay.
Okay.
So we're the Jello executive team, but we support the Venus session because it is where the executive takes place within the network. Okay.
Okay.
So we do both. And I'll let you know if there's any other aspects of it, but as long as we understand that during executive buddy team sessions, that we're focusing on both supporting the Venus work and the work of the entire executive network, as well as the Jello team. So the Jello team and the Venus session are very, very different, right? So the Jello team is one aspect of Jello. So Jello is a Mo, and so it does have its own structure, whereas the Venus is part of the entire FQN community network, main doc, right? So, and then you have the board or the bouncel, right? So Jello you have is a Mo, and this would also have a main doc, right? So basically what I'm trying to say is there's two main docs associated with the executive buddy team work that we'll be doing, okay?
Okay.
And another policy and process that we already covered was that all executive team sessions, executive buddy team sessions, are considered bonus hours. All right, so any questions about Venus and executive team relationship? And we're not going to go through the plasma stuff, but I'm noting it there. Oh wait, I already did this one down here. So all executive buddy teams are considered bonus hours. So executive team doc. We need some other type of priorities doc. Do we have a priorities doc yet?
Not yet. I can make it.
What is this new template of team doc? What is this? Is this the template super team doc?
Yeah, this is just a template that we are using for other teams.
Okay, so this is what we need to fix because it's a mess. This is, at least it's shorter, but it's still 3 pages and it's still a big mess. Okay?
Yeah.
So this would be called a template super team doc. This is what I was referring to. Weekly daily list of documents, global core team doc, global core team doc, global team name. Anyway, so this needs to be gone through and be fixed so that it's much simpler. So update the template super team doc. Okay. So we need a master priorities list doc. So that'd be helpful. But anyways, for now, I'll just write it. I'll write it here. Okay, so this is going to be for the. We'll just write it here for now. So we have. Okay, so the primary policy would be scheduled sessions, right? And these would be on call scheduled sessions. So all executive Jello team sessions are on call, are scheduled as on call sessions. Okay, so what this means is that everyone's required. So the person scheduled is required to check in at the slotted time. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, but no guarantee that this session will happen. But we are required to check in. Okay, so then you can optional to add a money per no session for on-call scheduling. Okay, so if you add a money per no session for on-call scheduling, you can do that. Currently, it is $0, so you have until the full moon. Okay, so this would be for long term, but we can do bonuses and things like that, and it's all bonus hours anyways. But it's just note that you need to propose if you want to do a money per no session for on-call scheduling. Does that make sense in terms of what that means?
How can someone propose?
It's just
if we have a zero bonus now, if we have a $0 now.
It's just part of your ideal, requested, and lowest, right? For your monthly, for your budget, your budget, right? You could just add a on-call scheduling. So basically, I don't know exactly what your hourly rate is or whatever, but you get paid like, whatever, your $350 per month, right? For X number of hours, right? So right now you're getting bonus time hours added to your pay, right?
300, not 350.
Cool, whatever, 300. So the point is that you have the bonus hours added to your pay for now. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Cool. So then on top of that, for every scheduled session, you get paid regardless of whether or not the session happens. All right, so if we look at the executive buddy team schedule, we would see here that you're scheduled for, so this is right now, Monday, Tuesday for the East Pacific. So this is the current one that we're in. All right, so all these times you're required to check in on the buddy team, on our executive buddy team, right? And then what happens is that if you're scheduled for, let's say, what is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 15. So it'll be 15 sessions. So let's say you do, you know, $1 per session. So maybe it's $1 per session, or maybe it's 50 cents. You know, 50 cents per session. So if you have 15 sessions, so at 15 sessions per week, that would be equal to, so obviously it would be $15 for $1 per session, and then $7.50 for 50 cents per session, right?
Yeah.
And then if you multiply that times 4, so it'd be like 15 times 4 weeks per month, that would be an additional $60. So it'd be $60 at $1 per session, and $30 per month at 50 cents per session. Okay, does that make sense?
Yes.
And this would be for doing nothing. So this is the minimum that you make in the money, even if you're not working anytime. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So it's up to you to decide. Like, it could be, I mean, some people are going to say $0. Like, I'll do the session and do no work for $0. That's fine. You know, some people, maybe they'll do like 5 cents, or they'll do 25 cents, or they'll do 50 cents. You know, some people will be like, I want $5, you know, but it's like, we're not going to do $5 if you're only making, you know, $4 an hour. You're making $5 an hour. Why would we pay you $5 to do nothing when you usually get paid $5 to actually work for an hour? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. So let's say that we check in on Skype, right? Example. Check in on Skype, right? Because you're required to check in on Skype. All team research means the position, on-call scheduling. So required to check in for all executive sessions, regardless of whether they happen. If you do not check in, the session will be canceled, and no, for following weeks, right? For following weeks, and no bonus or on-call pay given. Okay.
Okay.
So then if you check in, so then let's say you check in on Skype, right? And we go back and forth for a bit. And let's say, you know, it's 10 minutes, right? 10 minutes of Skyping, okay? Then in your work report, you would put 2.25 hours of Skype communication. Okay? So we 0.25 hours of Skype communication, right? And so you get paid for this time, plus you get the, you know, $1 or whatever for a canceled session. Right? So it wouldn't be necessarily canceled, it would just be like for no session. Right? So what I'm trying to say is that, you know, you get paid, if the session doesn't happen, you get paid the $1, and if you Skype and you check in for 10 minutes or whatever, you also get paid for the 15 minutes of work that you did, even if we didn't have a session. So hopefully that makes sense. Does it make sense or not?
It makes sense, yeah.
Cool.
So I want to know how many dollars can someone propose when there is no session?
They can propose whatever you want. So just be part of your of your base pay proposal, right? So anybody that's working on call, right? So on call work is basically where you're scheduled, but you're only scheduled to work during that session if and when you're needed. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Right? So let's go back here. You're scheduled for 30 hours a week. Okay? So there's no possible way that every week you'd be working for 30 hours on the executive. Like it's the executive work is very high level, and there's so many things that get in the way. It's rare that we actually have time to focus on the executive work, especially like during Cobalt right now. Cobalt is just like a lot, right? So the point is that just because you're scheduled doesn't mean you're going to work all of these hours. What you are required to do is to check in.
So I want to know the time, Jay, like American time and East Pacific.
America's is Andromeda, East Pacific is Cobalt, West Pacific is Sonic.
Okay.
That makes sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. And this would be, the green overlap with Sonic and Andromeda and Cobalt. And then this is the yellow here, and then we have orange and red. And then dark red. Okay.
Cobalt is American time, right? You said Cobalt?
No, Cobalt is East Pacific. And the reason I didn't label them is because the executive team needs to know this stuff. You need to know that the America's octant is the Andromeda team. The East Pacific octant is the Cobalt team. The West Pacific octant is the Sonic team. Which team is under the Austrasia octant?
Okay. So we don't have Cobalt time.
We do have Cobalt time. Right now we're in Cobalt. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 days a week.
Okay, East Pacific is Cobalt.
Yes.
Then American time is Andromeda. Okay, thank you.
Cool. Great. All right. So that is pretty clear. So really quickly with Joyce and Abdul, the problem with Joyce and Abdul is they only gave us 18 hours, and the minimum is 20 to 30 hours. So for the yellow team, you want a minimum commitment of 20 to 30 hours, right? And that includes, showing up and coming to some of the green team. But if they want to be part of the yellow team is a minimum of 15 to 20 hours plus the green team and other scheduled time that overlaps. So it should be overall 20 to 30 hours total time. And they're off by just like 1 or 2 sessions. So they're really, really close. They're just off by, like they just need to get over the mark. Like they just need a few more sessions in there to be, to meet the policies, okay?
Okay.
So, I think that they should be able to do it just fine. But, they just need to meet, I just want to really start everything correctly, right? So if they want to be on the yellow team, they need to just add a couple more sessions, 2 to 3, like 1, 2, 3 sessions. And then if anyone wants to be on the orange team, they would have to add, like 10 more sessions, right? All right, so I think we are good on all of that. So can you be in touch with Joyce and Abdul?
Okay.
Great.
I'll do that.
Yeah, all they need to do is just add a few more sessions, and then they can get started along with you. So the other thing to realize, which is very important, is that right now you're the only one scheduled, but once Abdul and Joyce are scheduled as well, we don't need tons and tons of people scheduled all the time, okay?
Okay.
Really, I just need one other person. So for example, in Cobalt, we might have one person that's doing the leadership buddy team and another person that's helping with the executive buddy team, right? So that could be one way to do it. But I mean, we really just need one other person at a time. We could potentially do two if we could experiment. We'll experiment a little bit with two. Here, hold on a second.
Okay.
All right. So buddy team. So it could be one or two people, but one is more than enough. But there is going to be a ranking. So another policy is there will be the executive Jello team rankings. All right. So this will be based on a variety of criteria. I think I might have that criteria here. Cool. So here's the criteria for ranking of Jello team. A note-taking ability. Right. So the fact that I'm taking all the notes right now is a problem. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Right. I need to be able to work with someone who can take notes during our session. Following processes. We've been doing pretty good today following the processes. Communication with me, someone who could communicate with me. So as an example of someone who's difficult to communicate with for me would be like Steve. It's like Steve's a great person, he does a lot of work, but when I'm trying to communicate with him and like focus on all the policies and procedures and all the executive work that needs to get done, it's very, very difficult, So focus and ability to follow along. So this is kind of more like understanding. Also very difficult with Steve, but we're doing pretty good with me and you. An overall commitment, /time /other, and then obviously cost. Right. So just like with our HR ranking, the higher amount of money that you want for your no sessions on call and just general pay per hour and everything like that, or pay per month, that would be costs. And so the highest criteria rankings we can get with the lowest cost would obviously be the ideal executive Jello team members. Okay?
Okay.
So based on the ranking, we'll determine who is scheduled. And so the schedule is schedule is set up with the primary scheduled worker, and then you have the backup. Okay, so backup does not need to check in unless they hear from the primary scheduled worker that they cannot work. So when we start talking about on-call work sessions, this is very, very different than all other buddy teams, right? All other level 4 buddy teams are open to all team members or octant members during those octants. And then if you can't make it, you just don't come. It doesn't matter. Does that make sense?
Yes.
For this, it's unacceptable to not show up. And not only is it unacceptable not to show up, it's required to check in. And if you're not able to show up, you have to tell somebody you can't show up, and you let them know, and then we have a backup. Right? And then the backup comes and shows up. Does that make sense? So,
yes.
If we go back to our schedule, what will happen here, let's just use today, for example. So today we'd have Lucy would be primary, right? And then we would have, let's see here. Let's say we had Abdul, right? Abdul would be backup. Right? So that would mean that if Abdul is backup, If you weren't able to make it, you would just tell Abdul, like, look, I can't make it for Monday. Can you cover for me? And then you would just step out. It would automatically tell Abdul, and then he would be the worker for that particular session.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Cool. So so sometimes we'll have 2 people working, and sometimes we'll just have 1, and then have a backup, and we'll see how that happens. But the idea is that we want all the scheduled sessions to have at least 1 person checking in, and that will be determined based on the rankings. Okay?
Okay.
So right now you're ranked number 1 because you're the only person. But once Joyce and Abdul get involved, whoever ranks highest, and the rankings can change over time, they would get first dibs on the scheduling. But some people's schedules will overlap differently, plus people's schedules will change. Okay, and we have all these additional spots that aren't filled yet. So all red spots, all orange spots, all yellow, green, all of it wants to be filled. The dark red ones are not that important to fill, but maybe in the future we could. But it's really like, basically, if it's red or dark red, that's like emergency, like major problems. And yeah, we'll get to that. Okay. So any questions about the scheduling or the Jello team rankings or anything else that we've covered so far?
No question. About the cost, what do you mean by the cost?
So that would be like, $5 per no session versus $1 per no session, versus $0 per no session, or one person wants $10 per hour versus another person who can work for $3.50 per hour, right?
Okay.
Or $300 per month versus $200 per month for the same time. The point is that, like, it's part of the HR rankings, right? So people that the less people are willing to work for, the higher that they rank. That's just how we do it, right?
Okay.
But that's not the only ranking. So the executive team rankings will be more than just that. And all the executive team rankings will support people's contribution rankings overall. So by being a part of the executive Jello team is going to increase your contribution rankings, but won't change your election rankings or your HR rankings. It only affects the contribution rankings.
Okay.
Cool. But we'll have our separate internal executive Jello team rankings, which will determine the scheduling and how we do all that. All right. So any other questions for now?
No.
Okay. All right. So what is next? Jay, it's about the note taking. What I understand is that I need to. I understand that I need to know what is in the session, but overview guidance for better understanding will do well. Okay, just gonna do all right, so and Adam, I don't know if Adam hasn't submitted a schedule or anything. He might be interested, but I don't know what we're gonna do with Adam yet. It's unknown. Okay.
Yeah.
And so that's another thing that we're gonna figure out. We could put that in code orange as well. Oh, schedule availability spreadsheet.
I think it's in the spreadsheet. It's in the spreadsheet.
Yeah, well, that's just COBOL. I mean, that's nothing for relates to executive team. So maybe he's just great on the normal Jello team.
देखिए
So if he's working like everyday Cobalt, that's perfect for Jello team, you know? So he would be a really good Jello team member, executive Jello team. Cool. So if you can make sure he has the link to the positions for people who don't fit in the budget, that has the schedule in it. Okay.
Okay.
Cool. All right. So let's get back here. So also we have Adam's position. There's also Monty. I think Mozzie is just gonna be recruitment commission. Put that under yellow. So I mean, basically, if he's required to have like 20 to 30 hours, it's just not anywhere close. I mean, this is only like 14 hours plus it's all within the green team, so it's like not really applicable. Cool. Anyway, so if Adam didn't fit into any of the existing budgets, he wouldn't be able to work anymore. So he either needs to step up into the Jello executive team, or he just needs to do the Jello team and not worry about it.
What about the recruitment commission? He cannot fit there also?
He could do the recruitment commission, yeah. Cool. All right, so let's get back focused here. So we got through all that. This is all good. That looks good. What else did we miss here? So Joyce and Abdul, you're going to be in touch with them. Executive roles and responsibilities. So I feel like we've gone through executive roles in general, which are very similar, but the key is really just focusing on the overall priorities, the team priorities, like the super team priorities, global team priorities. Right, then we have the deadlines, and then we have the code red, code yellow, code orange, right? Right. So we're gonna want to create these docs as well. So we would have like the code orange doc, the code yellow doc, right?
Yeah.
We might mix spreadsheets as well, but a doc should be fine. There shouldn't be a lot when it happens. But I have started a little bit here, like we can have code red. Currently not a lot. Currently there's nothing in code red. We're just not code red, which is a very, very good thing. Also, we don't have anybody on the red team. Okay, I'll go for the recruitment commission with Mozzie and others. Okay. So do you understand the code red, the code orange, and the code yellow?
Yeah.
Cool. So as being in the yellow team, right? We don't have the orange team in existence yet, right? But the yellow team's going to be working on all of the orange priorities because we are currently in code orange. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. So eventually that we'll have people who are in the orange team who would be overseeing all the orange problems, and then if we have people in the orange team and the yellow team, maybe we could even have the orange team focusing on the orange crises and the yellow team simultaneously working in preventing the yellow code yellow problems becoming orange problems, right? So overall, right now we're in code orange. We will get in code red again. It will happen. So it's just a matter of getting prepared for it. But people, if you're not on the orange team, you can't be on the red team. So there's the green team, the yellow team, the orange team, and the red team. And to be on the orange team, you are also on the yellow team. So right now you're on the yellow team. So we'll be working on all the orange issues. Thank you. Payment method was provided to Joyce. I would like to get paid via Payza. Okay. Cool. Excellent. All right. So any questions about the color coding of the priorities?
I think I've just seen them. Yellow is payrolls and
Great.
And orange non-profit taxes. What about accounting? Kind of counting?
No, accounting is not.
Canopy accounting?
No, that wouldn't be. No, it would be canopy trading.
Oh, canopy trading. Okay.
Yeah. So we're gonna be reducing canopy and doing a lot less with canopy at this point in time because it just hasn't come together. So I mean, basically my vision is that we're gonna slow down with canopy, gonna focus on building the executive Jello team, and then if we are able to step up canopy, we will. Okay.
Okay.
Cool. All right.
So the currently only code that we are in is yellow.
No, we're currently in code orange. This is the current level that we're at. Right, but we're not in code red, right? So we're not in code red, so which is great. All right.
Okay.
And so, I mean, technically speaking, we could say, I mean, there's only one level. Like, so right now we are in code orange. So there is no yellow because it's all orange. Like we're in code orange right now. So we should coordinate everything as if we're in a code orange emergency, right? It's not code red, but it is code orange. And so that's why we need the executive Jello team to step up and, take action. And what that means is that if people wanted to, we have the space to do as much as 50 hours a week, even 60 hours a week of code orange level work, right? Like if people were willing to get focused and do this work that needs to get done. I mean, if we did this a month or two ago, or like 2 months ago, we could have made 100,000, 200,000 or more. So it's just like, but it needs to be focused, dedicated work. It can't just be like, oh, I'm just going to show up to the buddy team if I want to, right? It's a very, very different level, right? This is like very much higher level, more focused. It takes many, many, many sessions to even get to where we would be, fixing everything, right? So right now we just have to spend a few hours just getting on the same page of all the new policies and understanding how the executive team functions, right? And this all needs to be done before we can actually jump into everything so that we can, because we need to get through things fast, right? So another important thing that we're going to be doing a lot of is going through verification spreadsheets, right? Where is that? Executive team responsibilities and priorities. So focus on overall priorities. We have all of these priorities, global team priorities, code red, code orange, code yellow, and then we're going to be doing a lot of verification spreadsheets. So we have to must be able to get through dozens, if not 100 plus topics in a few hours. Okay?
Yeah.
So you need to be, when you're in the executive buddy team sessions, is not a time to ask tons of questions and do lots of training, right? Like the question is, do you understand the vocabulary term? Okay? So for example, when I say canopy, right? Or when I say canopy accounting or canopy trading, you need to know what it means as far as the vocabulary term, but you don't need to know how to do it or need to know any of the training. Don't need to know how to do it or what it means or more training on accomplishing the task or goal or any responsibilities. Okay?
Yeah.
Cool. So if we get to that, we will do that. But once we start training you on specific responsibilities that you're doing and or training other people, like that no longer would really be executive level work. That would be actually getting into normal work. Okay?
Okay.
Cool. All right. So that's good. And we're getting through a lot right now too. So let's see, what else do we have? So any other questions on our current code orange? And we do need to create the code orange doc.
Code orange and also code yellow.
Yeah. And we'll probably have a code red doc as well, and possibly even a code green. When we're in the green, which would be good. And I mean, maybe we could even just create. Maybe we just need a policy prioritization spreadsheet. Yeah, we could probably do the prioritization spreadsheet with the colored tabs, and then we could have a master priorities doc. Yeah, let's just do this all within the master priorities doc, okay? So let's take all this, copy and paste. We come into the master priorities doc, and this is going to be the executive Jello team priorities doc.
Connecting.
All right, so this will be the executive Jello team master priorities doc. And then what we'll do here is we'll just copy and paste the red code red priorities, right? And then we'll just have them here ready to go.
Yeah, I think that's also still okay.
And
because there
then
are not so many.
and then we have code orange, and then eventually we'll have code yellow. All right, so here's code orange, here's code yellow. I mean, for now we're in code orange, so everything goes under code orange, even if they're not the highest priorities. So these would be top. Cool. Awesome. All right. Okay, so I think that's good. So we'll have our red, our orange, and our yellow priorities. And then we'll also put those in the spreadsheet. So that is good. What is next? So Joyce, Abdul, done. I think we covered pretty much all the responsibilities and roles. I mean, we're going to want, roles or responsibility description. So I'll put that as a next step.
I have a question before you go there.
Yeah.
You write here, don't need to know how to do it or what it means, or more training on accomplishing the task. So if you don't need to know why, then how will you do it?
So
you don't need to know how to do it.
When we're doing work, it's not executive level work. So what do managers do?
The managers always are on call. They can also check on other documents or other work. They can still work, or they can still just direct others to work.
Yeah. Okay. So basically, you have workers, right? Can you see my screen? Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you have workers. The workers are doing the work. Then you have the core team. The core team does the planning. The management team does the managing, right? In terms of managing and coordinating all the different workers and making sure that people are following through with what they say they're going to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what does the executive team do? Does the executive team do the work?
Not really necessary.
No, they don't. Does the management team do the work? Do managers do the work?
They cannot do sometimes.
No, managers do not do the work. The managers manage the work. So what I'm trying to say is that if you are a worker, you can also be a manager, but you're wearing two separate hats. In your management role, you're not doing work. You can assign yourself as a manager to do the work, but when you're doing the work, you are a worker, not a manager. You can't be doing work and then also be a manager at the same time. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So in the executive Jello team, we're not here to do work. It's a totally different level, right? So, we don't have time in the executive management team to do all the training. We can put it as a next step, right? So for example, we noted here in our next step that we want to review plasma responsibilities, right? So this would be normal worker training, and we might do that during a main session. And so then we might want to put this into a main session prioritization spreadsheet, or into one of our master topic lists. Okay.
Okay.
But that's what the executive team does. We take all the next steps, we take all the priorities, all the policies, and we make sure we're following through with them to make sure that it's addressed and connected to the right place, and so that we keep the bigger vision, right? So overall deadline. So the overall focus on the vision and moving forward of the entire organization. So in other words, we support the managers and the executive coordination of the organization and network. Okay?
Okay.
So we're not doing work, we're dealing with all of the work that needs to get done and making sure that it's being followed through with so that it connects to the bigger planning. So this is like the bigger planning and vision, you know, for the network, right? So and one example of this is the Saturn Session. So the Saturn Session is basically a big planning session for the next 14 years. And this is super important, especially at the executive level, to make sure we follow through with that, right? So if you get too caught up and worried about the day-to-day work of this regular worker work, then we're going to miss out on the opportunity of the Saturn Session. So that's why the executive level is so important. So you have a group of people who aren't worried about the day-to-day work. What happened 2 months ago because everyone was so worried about the day-to-day work? What happened in January because everyone was so worried about the day-to-day work? We lost out.
What happened in January?
Yeah, we lost out on like $100,000, if not 200 or 500 or whatever. We lost tons and tons of money because no one would just like let go of their day-to-day tasks and just, you know, focus on the bigger vision. Where if we put in the work for a couple weeks, you know, and got Canopy up and running, we could have had enough money for the next 2 to 3 years. Right? Not even the next couple of weeks, but everyone is so focused on their day-to-day tasks that they didn't see the bigger vision. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah, so the executive Jello team is not here to do day-to-day tasks and work. That's not what we're doing here, right? That we leave that to the leadership team is working on day-to-day tasks. When we have a executive Jello team, we're working on the big picture. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah, big picture, big planning, big picture. So it's very, very different, and we need to be focused and stay on task. All right. Sweet. So I think we covered most of that. Code levels and documentation, I think we covered it. Prioritization planning, prioritization spreadsheet, covered that. Worker coordination. So it's really not worker coordination. It's really more like, you know, management coordination. So the managers manage the workers and do the worker coordination, right? The executive coordinates the managers. Okay, so it's more of like management coordination. This is still certainly part of worker coordination, though. That's what it fits into, but it would be a different responsibility than worker coordination. Training on executive assistants. Okay, so any questions about management coordination? Are we ready to go a little into executive assistance training?
No question for that.
Okay, so what do you think the most important thing is for executive assistants?
Executive assistant is helping the executive.
Okay, but what do you think the most important thing is?
Updating on daily sessions, or any in case of we have any other meetings. Or
no. So during the session, what do you think the most important thing is to do during the executive buddy team session?
getting organized and make sure.
Yeah, so how do we get organized?
Come up again.
How do we get organized?
By following the policies.
Ooh, that's a good one. So to know and follow the policies, right? How do we hold the managers accountable?
When the managers are not following the policies.
Yeah, so we need to make sure managers are following policies, right? That's super important for executives. So executives coordinate all the policies, right? So managers follow policies, whereas executives create and enforce policies, right?
Yeah.
So, but anyways, what is the most important thing during a session to coordinate and organize and be able to do anything, right? It's what's the number one criteria for ranking the executive Jello team members?
To organize the rest of the Jello team members to.
Okay, I'll give you a clue. It's just like something that we do. It's something that I'm doing right now. It's something that you do. Without it, you can't document anything, and you have no idea what's going on. All right. Otherwise, you're just talking. So what is the number one criteria for the executive team rankings?
Yeah, one is taking notes.
Taking notes. Yes. So the number one most important thing for executive assistants is, what is it again?
Taking notes.
Taking notes.
Taking notes.
Yes, and how much note taking have you done?
I did not take any note.
Yeah, so I mean, just so you know, if you don't take notes, I mean, you'd be disqualified automatically, and hopefully Joyce or Abdul can step up, but it's not going to happen. Like, no one's going to be working with me at the executive assistant level who doesn't lift a finger during the session. It's just not going to happen, okay?
Okay.
Like, you're not here to listen. That's not what you're here to do. This is not listening and training time for Lucy. This is working and a very high level executive, bam, 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 boom, boom, boom. We got to step up because we have a lot to go through, right? So there shouldn't be any time where I'm talking that notes aren't getting made, and there shouldn't be any time when you're talking that notes aren't getting made, because we're both taking notes for each other. Anyways, I don't know how else to say it, but it's like, if you can't take notes, then just say so and then don't do the position. It's perfectly fine. If you don't want to do this, you can't do it. It's not a big deal, but if you can't take notes, it's not going to be very successful. Okay?
Okay.
But I mean, I've seen you take notes before. I'm pretty sure I've seen you take notes before, so I'm not worried about you. I think you're perfectly capable of doing this, but you got to step up and take notes. All right, so let's see. Following processes was huge. So following processes number 2. So you already got that down, which is great. Okay?
Yes.
All right, so the processes, you got that done. So number 1 is taking notes. Number 2 is the policies. So you did talk some about the policies. Like, we do want a policy doc for executive policy doc. And then we also, next up is we definitely want to go through policy organizing and policies verification spreadsheet. And we do have that here. I'll just put that under this. Cool. Awesome. And then the third and final thing as far as executive assistants is number 2 is policies. Number 3 would be to focus, stay focused, and follow along. It is a roller coaster of information and priorities. So again, we're going to be going through a lot of priorities. We'll get started on this soon. Cool. So then the only other thing that I will go over right now real quick is there's executive assistants, administrative assistants, and personal assistants. And I think it's helpful to understand the difference of the 3 types of assistant work. So you have, so this is virtual assistant work, right? So there's the three types. And then I think we'll be done for now. So you have executive assistants, administrative assistants, and what was the third one? Personal.
Personal assistant.
Assistants. So do you want to give a crack at what the difference between the three of them is, or do you want me just to tell you?
I don't really know the differences. Personal and administrative. I think I can try. Personal assistant is helping maybe somebody like you, and administrative you help the whole of organization.
Okay, and executive?
I have no idea on that.
So I think the most important thing on the executive level is the overall focus on the vision and moving forward the organization. The bigger picture, bigger planning picture, right? So you're so we could say like supporting the executive's vision and work for the big picture, right?
Yeah.
So administrative assistance is the whole organization. It's more like following policies and processes and doing coordination work, right? So this is a little bit more self-driven because you're following the policies and processes that have already been created or creating processes, right? Whereas the executive assistant work is you're really working for the vision of the executive assistant. So the executive assistant work is much more like the personal assistants, except for personal assistants, you're helping the individual in their personal life, right? In their personal life. So this is more like life support. Whereas the executive assistants, you're supporting the individual executive for the vision that they have in the organization, right? So you could think about it like if you had two executives and you had two separate executive assistants, they could both be working on competing visions, whereas an administrative assistant, all administrative assistants have to be working on the same policies and procedures of the organization, whereas executive assistants could be working on competing visions because each executive could have a separate agenda and a separate interest. Okay?
Yeah.
Cool. So hopefully that makes a little sense, but all of it's all virtual assistant work, and it's all pretty much the same concept, and we'll go more into all of these over time. But it's really important to be training and educating people on how to be a good executive assistant and doing the executive assistant work so that when we're here doing this, we are successful. So we didn't really spend much time actually doing anything today. We just talked about what we're going to do. So in the future, it'll be much different than today. But I could just go over what to expect. So the two primary types of work for executive assistants, okay?
Okay.
So the two primary types of work is, code orange work. So for example, just, talking through and supporting Jay's work on canopy, nonprofit taxes, right? So basically you're there to help with the taxes, but you may even have your own work to do as well, right? Which is fine. But the point is that you're there to help me get focused on the super essential overall work that I can't do by myself because it's just overwhelming. It's too much. I can't do the canopy by myself. I can't do nonprofit taxes by myself. But having you there is like, makes it possible. And then the other one is the priority lists. So like going going over and reviewing hundreds of priorities and management tasks. Okay, so those are the two.
Okay.
So Code Orange work is really slow, right? So this is like really slow, lots of silence. Priority lists is really fast, lots of talking. Okay?
Okay.
But they're both equally as important and equally as executive. Okay?
Yeah.
Cool. And you know, if we're able to get Canopy functional and moving forward, you know, it would be great. So hopefully it all works out and we get things moving forward. So I mean, I would say right now we could either I don't know, we could attempt to do maybe a little bit of, let's like look at the Code Orange stuff. So there's legal compliance, nonprofit taxes, Canopy, trading. You know, all of them are overwhelming, and I don't want to do any of them right now. But if we were going to do something, you know, doing some of the Canopy trading and getting that out of the way, or some of the other legal compliance planning, could potentially be good. I'm just going to put this in code yellow to simplify. So it's really just the nonprofit taxes and the Canopy trading, and then we also have individual taxes coming up. And there's also this